Call to order the May 18th, 2020 School Board Directors Public Budget Hearing. At the conclusion of the public hearing, by motion, we will go into our regularly scheduled meeting. Roll call, Ms. Collins. All board members are present and accounted for. The next subject is 3.1, the 2020-2021 budget. Dr. Perrin.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, this is a procedural step to meet school code. We have to do a public comment section for the proposed budget that was passed at the last board meeting. The document that was on the public website are simply the same information for the information that was passed at the last board meeting. The proposed final budget has a tax increase of 0.8%. And then between tonight's meeting and June 1st, we'll take a look at some items and further refine this, and then make last minute adjustments also for then the 15th, which is when the final budget is scheduled to be voted on. So we'll take a look back through revenues, take a look at some last minute projections in terms of local, state, and federal revenue, and also make sure that we've taken a look at any of the things that would have changed from now to June 1st with regards to expenditures. So as we said last time when we passed the proposed budget, there would certainly be changes to it, but we had to meet the state code in terms of the timeline. So generally then we would allow folks to make public comment, and I believe, Andrew, do we have one?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we have one public comment here. It says, Mr. President, my name is Bob Stillwell. I live in the Gettysburg Area School District. I will pay about $6,000 is school property taxes this year. During the last budget cycle, I posted a letter in the Gettysburg Times in which I explained why a school property tax increase was not warranted and that, in fact, a decrease would be in order. I pointed out that the budget request the previous year and had been inflated, that the money budgeted had in fact not been spent, and that the unassigned fund balance had grown to well over twice what the school district policy says is enough. It was clear that there was adequate money in that fund to both pay for any budget shortfall and still maintain an adequate unassigned fund balance. This was also the case the year before, when a similarly inflated budget had also not been spent. In that letter, I suggested Dr. Perrin and the then school board president, Mr. Wampler, explained to the taxpayers why any tax increase was needed, but they remained silent, and the board, whether complicit in the scheme or just not paying attention, rubber stamped a 1% tax increase anyway. An examination of recent district budgets show that about the time Dr. Perrin arrived, a troubling pattern of inflated revenue requests combined with underspending began, accompanied by relentless tax increases and unjustifiably inflated unassigned fund balances. 3 years ago, 2017-18, the revenues included a tax increase of 2.5%, yet the budget was underspent by almost $2 million. The following year, another tax increase, and again, spending fell short by $3.5 million. The audits for both years show unassigned fund balances remained at twice what is prescribed by school policy. Not to be deterred, for the present school year, 2019-20, the board again approved an inflated budget based on what was spent the year before, but on the bogus revenue requirements from the previous year. And of course, still another unneeded tax increase. I strongly urge this board to demand a true estimate of what the district's expenditures will be through the end of the fiscal year before you approve any final budget request from this administration. Now, Here we are in a period of economic disaster that may exceed the devastation and misery of the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve predicts the national jobless rate, already over 20%, will eventually exceed 32%. Pennsylvania has the highest percentage of jobless claims of any state, already 23% of the workforce. Of Pennsylvania's 1.1 small businesses, it is estimated that as many as 40% of them will never do business again. Gettysburg is a small business town and a small business county. Many of our residents are in distress, struggling to even put food on the table, afford medical care, or pay their mortgages, let alone pay school property taxes. Yet Dr. Perrin, given the bleak economic future this county faces in the multi-million-dollar slush funds he's been running in the unassigned revenue, has the audacity to come before this board and ask for yet another tax increase, knowing full well that the district will also have substantial operational savings from the second semester shutdown. He gives a whole new meaning to the terms tone deaf, quote, and quote, callous. The guardian of the public's pocketbooks is the school board. Only you stand as protection against unchecked spending and this sort of, quote, creative budgeting used to fund it. Before you think about how much you would like to have all the school improvements, extra personnel, and all the rest that is built into this new budget proposal, I want you to first think about the thousands of unemployed Adams County taxpayers you will be asking to pay for it. The front page headline in the Gettysburg Times reporting your budget meeting 2 weeks ago when only 3 of you were willing to say no to this insanity could just as well have read, quote, as local economy disintegrates, GASD school board gives taxpayers the finger, end quote. Recent years have given us unprecedented economic growth and the taxpayers were mostly willing to look the other way at these incessant tax increases. No more. Dr. Perrin's proposed budget rather, shows just how out of touch he and his staff are with the economic disaster that's upon us. I urge the board to exercise your oversight responsibilities to approve a budget that not only denies unaffordable spending increases, but one that actually decreases the tax rate enough to bring the unassigned reserve funds within policy bounds. GASD taxpayers will think better of you for that. Finally, Mr. President, a healthy school district needs a superintendent who can lead in good times and in bad. The proposed budget does not reveal that should be anticipated. If this superintendent is unable to guide the district through the next few slender years, then this board needs to quickly find one who can. Signed, Bob Stillwell.
Kenny, you're muted.
I apologize. I was on mute there. I know it seemed like kind of out of order if somebody wanted to ask a question, but I deliberately wanted to wait and allow any citizens at a public budget hearing to put their thoughts out and allow the board members to hear what their comments were. And I wanted to move back, and I want to move back at this time while it's a proposed budget. I want to provide or ensure that every board member, if they have any additional questions, even though there hasn't been any changes or proposed recommendations from our last vote, I still wanted to ensure you had an opportunity to ask Dr. Perrin any question you wanted to ask before we're going to close out the public hearing. So I would open up the floor if anybody has any questions.
Mr. President, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Go ahead, Carrie.
My comment is it still feels reckless to add the special budget request and add 3 additional positions that are continuous expenses, not just a one-time expense. In this climate, it feels very reckless to have those in there.
Thanks, Carrie. We'll be considering that as we move towards sharing updated information on June 1st.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Al.
Dr. Perrin, I believe not a lot has changed recently, except for I do believe Pennsylvania has gotten information regarding how much federal support they are going to get to help local school districts and state entities and whatnot. At this time, I'm guessing you may or may not know a projected number that what Gettysburg's piece of that pie might be.
Yeah, we have an idea of how much money that may be. What we're not sure of yet, if you recall back in spring of 2011, when the federal government infused ARRA funds, what they did was they utilized those funds, but then supplanted state funds. So they basically increased the federal allotment as pass through for the state. So although there might be a pocket of money that comes in as new revenue, state revenue may be withdrawn basically to equal that out. So most of the districts that we've talked to, at least that I've talked to, and certainly Belinda can chime in if her information is different, a number of districts are not counting that basically as new revenue because of the unknown in terms of how that might occur.
Right. Thank you. And also, like Carrie, I just have a simple comment as well, reflecting on this over the last few weeks. I'm with Carrie. I don't think the timing is good to add any additional staff. I do think what we have added over the past few years, even in the short time my tenure on the board, we've added about 12 positions, I believe. I think we're adequate, and the fact that enrollment is pretty stable, I think we're in good shape, and that our leadership team and our teaching staff and our support staff do a wonderful job, including our district administrative team. And I do think with all the uncertainties there, it would be, I don't want to use the word reckless, because those positions are nice to have positions and so on, but I don't think we're in position to do that because of all the unknowns. However, I do believe, I don't know if a 0.8%, I do believe a small increase is appropriate, just because I know with keeping up to speed with contractual agreements and those things that we have committed to with the professional staff, the Act 93 team, the support staff, and so on. And then also, obviously, inflation from year to year. I think it would be irresponsible on our part not to try to keep pace to some degree. Maybe it's not 0.8, maybe it's 0.5, but some small fraction of increase so that we can keep pace and not be like a lot of other districts that I know of that are in a position where they utilize and eat up all their fund balance, and then they have no flexibility. And then they end up having to be in positions where, and unfortunately, I know all too well about having to curtail or eliminate valuable programs for services for kids in our community, and even sometimes furloughing staff so that we cannot provide those. So that's where I stand, and unless something drastically changes between now and the next meeting, that's where I'll be. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. We'll be looking at all those variables when bringing updated information on June 1st, and we certainly aren't going to recommend anything moving to the final budget that's going to put the district's health in short-term or long-term risk. At the same time, even with a 0.8% tax increase, we would be looking, at a greater difference between revenues and expenditures. So that difference being around 4.1 million is about 2/3 of our fund balance. So we're not dealing with a lot of room for error there over multiple years. So we'll take those into consideration, and we'll bring updated numbers on June 1st. We'll get feedback from the board and make final adjustments for the 15th.
Mr. President, it's Amy Beth Hodges. I thought I'd speak a little. I was very transparent in my communications last meeting, but I beg of each of you to look beyond yourselves. I believe that you all have a paycheck that comes either directly into your bank account or to yourselves. I'd like you to look around, ask questions of the people that you represent, drive around our town and our outskirts to see what you would normally see and what you see now. We need to understand that we are in a crisis. And I really look forward to talking more about the things that need to be addressed, and certainly not a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Yes.
And I concur with Al and Carrie with the special request. That's for sure. I'm also not really. I get Al's point. It's kind of a tough spot in that sense. I just don't think at this time we can afford to raise taxes. But I did have one question, and Wayne could probably answer this because I haven't seen it addressed anywhere, and I know it's coming up. I don't know if it's been enacted yet, but the stormwater tax or fee or whatever they're going to start here directly, which nobody is exempt from. Does anybody know what that's going to cost the district as a whole?
Mr. Sigmund, I'm going to ask Tom if he remembers exactly what we paid, because we actually had to pay that last year for the district.
I don't remember the exact amount. It seems to me it was around $30,000, but we are budgeting for that in the budget. So that's in our budget. And then Wayne and I are actually going to be working with the borough to see if there's a way to curtail some of that fee with an appeal. Since we had just recently upgraded the storm water management system, and that the main area that we're getting charged is Lincoln and middle school.
Okay. Is all the townships charging that, or is that just specific boroughs and specific townships at the moment?
It's just Gettysburg Borough at this moment.
So that was 30,000 just for the borough.
Don't quote me on that. I'd have to go look and see what we actually spent.
Roughly.
It was around 30,000.
So at some point in time, might not be this year, but eventually I think this is going to be a statewide, countywide deal. But so eventually we'll have one from Franklin Township, Cumberland Township, or is that Strabane Township? And part of Cumberland, I guess, because part of the school is in Cumberland there in town.
Yeah, the stadium is in Cumberland.
All right. That was all my questions. I never saw that put in anywhere, and I was just wondering about that and what the school might have to pay for that.
Are there any additional questions on the during the budget hearing?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just want to go on record that I am opposed to the SBRs. We have sufficient funding.
Sylvan, I don't know about anybody else, but the only thing that I could catch was is that you want to go on record, you were opposed to special budget request, and then it tailed off, and we weren't able to, we couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, the only other point going along with Al would be looking at a small percentage to make sure that we have sufficient funds to fund all our programs.
Sylvan, I again apologize, and I don't want to take your time, but if I can summarize what I believe you said is that you would be opposed to the special budget request, in addition that you would concur with Mr. Moyer as to a small increment increase to keep up with the times. Was that pretty accurate with what you said?
You are correct.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions related to during the public budget hearing? If there are no further questions, may I have a motion to close this portion of our meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Public budget hearing will now be closed. We'll be moving on to our May 18th, 2020 Board of School Directors meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of Gettysburg Area School District. Public comment is welcome and issues will be referred to the appropriate board committee or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be available by contacting the business office. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones or any other electronic devices. I know that we're on Zoom, which makes that a little difficult. Ms. Collins, as stated before, all members are present for this particular board meeting. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Notices and communications.
Yeah, I asked Jeremy Luss just to give a quick review of all the work that he and his team have been doing with regards to commencement on the 29th.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. We're good, Mr. Lusk. How are you?
Good. I actually just
Jeremy.
stopped typing, trying to update another parent and student communication that relates to graduation, now getting into the specifics of the event that will take place on the 29th of May, which will have several parts to it. The first being a parade of warriors from the class of 2020, at the end of which they'll be able to receive their diploma on a stage that will be decorated in a way that will be worthy of them and their achievements, and should be really fun. It's something that we've put a lot of time and energy in on, a lot of time today. It's taking a lot of my time on this Monday, amongst other things, but we're putting together a good plan. So it'll look like a parade of vehicles that will end at the gates of the high school. It'll run from 2 to 6 on the 29th of May. We will have a number of folks there, safely assembled and spaced out so they can support our graduates. I'd like to take the time to invite you. In fact, we just sent on a communication to the administrative team, inviting them to consider participating. So I'll extend that invitation to you, and you don't have to answer right now. I'll send an email directly to you so you can get back to me on that. So that'll be from 2 to 6 at the high school, and again, it should be really exciting. Something definitely unique for the class of 2020. And then that'll be followed by a virtual ceremony that we've begun to piece together as we collect photos from the graduating seniors and other places to assemble a virtual ceremony that will be revealed at 7 p.m. that evening, and that will include all the more traditional components of a commencement ceremony with a speech from our valedictorian and a student choice speaker, as well as myself, and a pronunciation of the graduates from Dr. Perrin, some senior songs, including the national anthem, and another piece from our chorus, senior students, and that'll come together really nicely. We have a very talented team of folks that'll put together a top shelf product for our students. There's a lot of details and planning that are going into it, and again, I was just in the midst of typing up another parent/student update that'll go out either this evening or early tomorrow morning. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask now. But it's gotten a lot of feedback. We talked to a number of student groups, including the students that'll be graduating with honors cum laude from the class of 2020. We met with virtually, and before we really solidified our plans to do what we're doing, we got their feedback and spoke individually with a few folks, valedictorian and some others, and spoke to some of the class officers that are involved in student council. And it's good to hear their feedback, and it's all been very positive. In fact, I spoke to a student that will deliver the welcoming address, who is amongst our top 10%. She's also a member of our student council, and she's just expressing a lot of positivity about what we have planned. And she said her classmates, the ones that she's spoken to, feel the same. You know, there'll always be people that might wish for something different or something more, but we haven't gotten a whole lot of that. And in fact, we would probably get that on any other given graduation day. We try our best to please as many people as possible, and I think people are going to be really happy at the end of this. That makes me excited because these seniors deserve it.
Jeremy, two things real quickly. First off, your admin team and yourself with your Twitter and with your messages that I've watched continually come out since we went to lockdown, so to speak, have just been, it's rocked it. I've got nothing but positive feedback from anybody I've ever talked to, and I've read every single thing that's come out. Fantastic, and please extend that to your admin team. I mean, you guys really went above and beyond any expectations. Number two, as you know, if ones that have served on the board before, what our particular role was during graduation, and it's really a great, I'll speak for myself, it's a great time for us to come in and be able to see the time we volunteer and these kids celebrate this milestone of their life. Maybe you and I can get together here at some point and you can lay out what role the board would play or how you envision that. And I can get that out to the board and kind of organize that side, take that off of your plate and handle the board part of that. But you don't have to do it now. We can talk later.
Right. Yep. We'll be in touch. In fact, I spoke to a few folks today about what we might ask you to do in terms of our virtual ceremony, as you put the medallion on the flag, as the board president generally does, the academic medallion, and we'll include some of those pieces in the virtual ceremony. But again, I did want to invite you to attend the Parade of Warriors and the diploma presentations as well. And if you can't commit to all 4 hours, maybe it would be something less, but we'll be in touch and we'll let you know what we can do for you, where we'd set you up and what that would look like. And you can let me know what you'd want to do as well. So we'll be in
Fantastic.
touch.
I'll look forward to hearing from you and I can get that out to the board. Anybody else from the board have any questions for Mr. Lusk or comments?
Kenny, Kathleen.
Yes. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi. Mr. Lusk, I've got to tell you, I kept smiling when I read your email about the plans for commencement and now with your presentation to us tonight. Thank you and your team from the bottom of my heart and what you're doing to make this a really special commencement, one to remember for the ages. And I have a question for you. I'm also really happy when I see in people's front yards signs that refer to Gettysburg High School graduate. So if those signs are intended just for the graduates' yards, that's great. If they're also intended for supporters of graduates, I would be more than happy to purchase one from your yard. Just let me know.
Okay, I appreciate that thought. Yeah, that was fun to assemble teams and head out into the community and deliver those signs personally. We had a number of teams. We each took about 15 and traveled throughout the community, and it was just really fun and a moment of pride to stick those in lawns. We ordered a second batch because we did have those for purchase last year. Now we decided that these graduates deserve to get those as a gift, the graduates and their families this year. But we did order a few extras for other community supporters who would want one, and we can certainly order more. So I'll let you know how to get one of those.
Thank you. And again, I would certainly need a donation. I think that would be important.
Mr.
Questions about commencement? As we said, I can communicate some more detailed plans on how you might be able to be involved directly, but we appreciate your support. And there's been a lot of folks who've put a lot of time and thought into how to recognize these graduates as well as we possibly can. And at the same time, keep people safe and abide by the expectations that we're expected to abide by. But in the end, I think we put together something that's exciting and should be really fun and memorable for these kids. So I expect that they'll really find some joy in it.
Carrie, I believe you had a question or comment.
Just a comment. I truly appreciate the efforts your team is making as you know, it broader to all of the staff. It is so strange and abnormal to not be around students, and those moments that we can connect with the students emotionally, socially, and even in any type of face-to-face, even though they may be small while walking across the stage, they mean something. And like the emotions just well up in both parties because we are social beings. And so the efforts to make this special, but to also allow them to connect socially and emotionally, deeply appreciated. So thank you for all of that, and to the broader Gettysburg team for those efforts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like I said, I thank all of you for your support. And there's a lot of folks that put more time and energy and thought into such things than most people can really understand. But it's nice when we see people react in the way that we've seen. It's for the kids. They deserve it. They put years of time and effort into earning those diplomas. So it's and their families deserve it too. As many of you know, sometimes that moment is more important for the parents. So we tried to construct a plan that would allow parents to participate, some grandparents as well, safely, which is important for a lot of grandparents. And again, I think we came up with the best plan possible considering all the obstacles that we're all facing. So thanks again.
Anything additional?
I do. Jeremy, I just, again, kudos. I'm glad that we were able to do something for the graduates, and it seems to be, it's going to be different, but above and beyond at the same token, especially for the times that we're in. And I want to thank everybody for that. I just had one question, not regarding that, but is there I just want to know if there was because I haven't seen anything yet, and there could have been email sent out because my wife usually gets all the school emails. But is there a plan in place or talks about what we're going to do with stuff in students' lockers, getting their stuff cleaned out, returning of sports equipment, returning of the computers, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, in fact, the communication that I'm almost done with right now speaks to the plan for seniors. We're gonna have 2 pickup dates with a variety of stations. One to drop off some athletic uniforms that are still out, 2 to drop off library books and calculators, 3 to drop off technology, namely their laptops, and 4 there's some other office details that will go out, and then we'll also collect things for them from their PE lockers and from their general lockers, which few students use, but a few of them will. So there's a form that we're going to push out to seniors first to see what may be in the building that they might need us to collect for them. But that's part of the senior communication that's going out. And then we're looking at that first week of June. As we wrap up school that week, we're gonna designate a couple of days with some windows of time where other students can drop things off and pick things up. So we're working on that right now.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep. We'd like to try and keep any entry to a minimum. I'm not going to say that it won't happen, but we're going to attempt to gather any belongings that students may have in the building, label it, and then have a team of people that can deliver directly to the student outside the building as they come up.
Mr. President.
Yes, Tim.
On behalf of the board, everybody's expressed their appreciation. Nobody's expressed there. Is there anything we can do to help you at this point? Is there anything we can do to help?
Not directly. Just knowing that we have your support is enough. There's plenty of work to do, and I know some folks who aren't directly involved in the building or in this business, if you want to call it that. I always call it a lifestyle more than anything. Don't understand what teachers and educators and administrators continue to do for kids, even during this closure, if you want to call it that. It's been time consuming. Just your understanding and support that there's still some really, really busy educators out there, despite the fact that we're locked out of the building that we normally call our second home. If there's something I can think of that we need directly from the board, we'll certainly let you know. We would appreciate any involvement that you're willing to offer for commencement, just to support the kids more than anything. But we appreciate your continued support for us and the kids and the community. So I thank you. I know that there's challenging times as I've listened to your conversation this evening. It's challenging for all of us. Just need to do our best to make the best decisions we can for kids. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Appreciate the question.
Thank you, Jeremy. And I look forward to hearing from you in the near future on what role the board can take. Any additional questions before we move forward? Okay, citizens' participation. As we said during the first budget hearing, we only had one individual that sent an email to the board for public participation. There is nothing this evening, which leaves us with routine approvals. 5.1, 5.1, the financial report, 5.2, budget transfers, and 5.3, human resource recommendations. 5.1, 2, and 3. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And second.
Questions? Hearing no questions, I'll call for roll call.
Penny, I
Kathleen,
have a
I'm sorry.
question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
I have a question. I'm raising my hand, but I don't know if I'm able to be seen doing that. I do have a question about 5.3, human resources recommendation. And my question is, for the professional staff, the JROTC instructor, we've got salary is to be determined and start date is to be determined. And I wonder if we could get more information about that.
Yeah, those are determined by the Army. So we haven't yet received the salary that's dictated by the Army, but we wanted to get the candidate approved because they were fantastic. So we wanted to get them on board, and we can approve the salary whenever we do receive that in the future.
Thank you so much. So does the military also determine the start date, or do we determine that?
We can determine the start date once the military releases the person from their previous role.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no additional questions. Roll call, Kathleen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
Amy Beth,
Yes.
Timon,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sylvan,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Our items for board action, we're going to do individually as we always do. The first item is 6.1, the Adams County Technical Institute operating budget. I have a motion.
So moved.
And second.
Question? Roll call. Carrie,
Yes.
Sylvan,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Timon,
Yes.
Amy Beth,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The next item is 6.2, Montessori Charter School renewal. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Question? Mike,
Yes.
Timon,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Amy Beth,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sylvan,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. 6.3 paving maintenance, CoStar's contract number 29-046. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Question? Roll call. Amy Beth,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Timon,
Yep.
Sylvan,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
and I vote yes. 6.4 high school roof replacement, again, a CoStar's contract number 008-533. Motion, please.
So moved.
Motion.
And second.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah, I have a question. Wayne could probably answer it. I saw the total on there, but it doesn't reflect, or the paper didn't reflect how much of that or the difference for the insurance company paying for the other part.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation today with our, we have a Liberty Mutual, and I'm looking at about $200,000 that's going to come back to us for the damage that was done to the auditorium roof from the wind damage. So approximately $200,000 will come back to the district after the work's done.
Okay.
Excuse me. Any additional
Thank you.
questions? Roll call. Excuse me. Kathleen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Amy Beth,
Yes.
Timon,
Yep.
Al,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Sylvan,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Our last item, excuse me, this evening on for an action item is 6.5 Gettysburg School District Project Funding Resolution. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Question?
I do have a question, Mr. President.
Go,
It may
Carrie.
be more of a comment. We'll see how it comes out. The amount of the funding, I know I understand that it gives room for multiple projects. And this is the comment part, I'm uncomfortable with the size of that, considering that some of the projects won't start until 2024. And there were some previous information where it was stepped into two different amounts that I'm more comfortable with. And I know the bond market has fluctuated right around the time of the state closure, but pretty much it's steady. So my comment is I'm uncomfortable with the size of this and the length of time till some of the projects will actually begin.
Linda, do you or anybody from your team want to share why the number is what it is versus a different number per se?
Sure. This evening we have joining us Morgan Haas from SAW, as well as Lauren Stadel is also on the Zoom meeting too to respond to any of the questions. I believe Lauren has been active from the very beginning, so she may be able to respond to the portion of the previous accounting of it versus the structure as it is currently. And then Morgan may also be able to provide insight as to the amount not to exceed, as the parameters is just setting us in motion to eventually borrow, not necessarily that we're borrowing this evening. So I will, let either one of them address your questions, Carrie, as well as any other board members who may have some questions. So I'll open it up to them, if they, be able to reassure and or respond to your questions. Morgan and Lauren.
Thank you, Belinda, and good evening, everyone. Nice to be in front of you virtually again this evening. To address any concerns that you may have, what was reviewed previously with the board back in January, I believe it was showing multiple step financings laid out over a number of years. And that is still the plan as we currently know it. The reason that we are putting one master resolution in front of you this evening is purely a cost saving mechanism. Should you decide to forego any future issuances after the initial one that we're considering doing here in about a month or two, there's no additional cost to the board, to the school district, by not issuing the rest of the authorized debt. This is purely an authorization that will go to the Department of Community and Economic Development pursuant to the Local Government Unit Debt Act. And so if you were to purely authorize tonight what we intend to borrow in the first borrowing, we'd have to come back and do another resolution, another advertisement, and another filing fee with DCED. So this saved a few $1,000s, knowing that the intention going forward is to do another borrowing. But if you decide to pull the plug on any future borrowings, you are not required by this resolution to issue additional bonds. So the filing will just sit on the shelf at DCED until such time as you choose to use it. Morgan, did I miss anything there of import?
I'm just going to follow up. Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Haas. I'm one of the members of your bond council. And just to follow up on what Lauren said, she is absolutely correct. This is just an authorization that we do now so that when you decide that you do want to issue bonds, we don't have to wait for the 20-day period that DCED has to approve our proceedings. And also built into the resolution, it allows for the board to issue bonds in amounts less than the 45 million that's authorized here, which it will be less than. It also allows you to not do anything. You don't need to issue bonds, even if we proceed and you decide to adopt the resolution tonight. This just gives you the ability to move forward and do that. It also builds into here that you can do less projects that are different projects that are mentioned in here. It just is a layout, and it's really just to give you authorization so that we can get the ball moving now, but it doesn't require you to move forward with the actual financing itself.
I have a question. And so it seems to me that this bond kind of seems like a line of credit, so to speak. Like if I was doing remodeling my house, I'd have a line of credit and I can take what I need, or I can take up to a certain amount. Is it kind of the same way in a sense?
You could view it as a line of credit in that it's an authorized amount with the state. However, we have not locked in any interest rate on the authorized but not issued portion. So let's say we issue $20 million in July of 2020. And so you'll have the remaining 25,325 on the authorizing resolution. So you can sort of view it as, yes, it's an untapped authorization, but there is no formal, loan on that money yet. You are not on the hook to pay that money back to anyone. It is just a filing with the state to allow us, the flexibility to enter the market at the time and at the, best suited for the district, given your cash flow needs for projects borrowing, excuse me.
Also, just to add on to what Lauren's saying, so when we do submit this to DCED for the full 45 million, it'll be on your debt statement with DCED, but none of the debt will be issued by the school until you actually go through the pricing with Lauren, as she was just mentioning. Additionally, we have a process where when you decide that you don't want to borrow anymore, we can take that debt off of the debt statement with DCED so that it's not showing there, but it's not actually issued by the school until you proceed with the pricing, as Lauren just mentioned.
Lauren, it's Kenny. And I think we spoke when you were in, I believe you were in for when the business or the business and finance committee hearing or meeting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So let me recap and stop me if I'm wrong or correct me when I'm done. It's a cost savings for us to enact this tonight, number one, because we have to pay each time we have an issuance of a bond, correct?
Correct. Every time you advertise and file with DCD, there is an issue or there's an expense associated with that.
And it's also accurate, and I believe we got this from the Business and Finance meeting, we're not authorizing any spending of any money at any time in the near future. We're only and we would have to improve each of the projects before we would do an issuance of a bond or go and incur any debt, correct?
Correct.
And if we have a 5-year cap plan that members of the board, let's just say, and I'm hypothetically look at this and say, there's projects that the board would support, at some point we're gonna have to do this anyway, correct?
Assuming that you need to borrow in order to do those projects, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
I'm sorry, did somebody?
Yeah, Sylvan.
Hi, Sylvan.
I'm sitting here listening to this discussion, and I think it could go under what is normally SOP, standard operating procedure. Every school district would go through it, and you're just giving us the opportunity to save the district money. Would that be correct?
I'm very sorry, Sylvan. I couldn't quite understand your question. Was anyone else able to hear that a little more clearly than I was?
I'm not sure what's wrong with my speaker here. What I was just saying was, I guess out of my experience, it would fall under SOP, standard operating procedure. What you're asking us to do this evening is what most school districts would do in order to save money. And you're giving us that opportunity tonight. We're not spending a penny, but we are given the opportunity to do that later on.
Yes, in my experience, most schools currently in the Commonwealth that are undergoing multi-year capital plans have gone this route, one, for a cost-saving perspective. Two, as you may be aware, over the last several years, there has been some legislation thrown around about property tax elimination. And the effects of that on being able to borrow for debt. If you can show that you have an authorized issue in place, even though you haven't necessarily borrowed for it, that may be a way in which you can still issue debt if that legislation ever does come through. Because as you know, you plan for years and years when you want to build or improve upon your infrastructure. And you assume that you'd be able to do that under what you know currently to be the way that the way in which schools raise money through property tax revenues. So this may be a way some people have thought to preserve that ability. So if in 3 years the legislature decides that they're going to eliminate property taxes for schools, but they'll still allow you to keep in place mills to pay for debt service, that may be a way, in order to preserve that ability. So that's another reason that a lot of folks have gone this direction. But in my experience, currently, this is the manner in which most, if not all, school districts are approving financings for their capital projects.
Thank you, Lauren.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you for your answers this evening. Roll call. Carrie?
Yes.
Sylvan?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Timon? Timon? Okay, I can see that he said yes. Amy Beth?
No.
Mike?
No.
And I vote yes. Informational item 7.1, policy 006.1, attendance at meetings via electronic communications. I'm going to go individually. If you have any questions, we'll entertain them now.
Okay, it's Kathleen.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Yeah, hi. Well, I'm kind of going to throw something out there for us to think about. I've been really stuck by the intent of a particular sentence in the guidelines section of the policy, and it's the second paragraph, which basically says the majority of board members, which makes a quorum, are physically present at the board meeting in order for a board member to attend electronically. So I've been stuck on that because I'm wondering what the intent of it is. And I think the intent is that there's always a quorum present physically in the boardroom. And of course, I'm not talking about now, but in brighter, more usual days. So if the intent is that there's always a quorum present in the boardroom, I think this current language is reactionary. And I suggest that we could be proactive if we tweak the language a little bit and say something like, to assure a majority of board members are physically present at a board meeting, which is quorum, maximum of whatever the number is, board members will be granted permission to attend electronically. Because what we haven't done in the policy is say, look, there's a limit to the number of board members that will receive permission any given meeting to attend electronically. And my concern is with the current language, we could, however unlikely, could be in a situation where show up to a boardroom and we don't have a quorum because people call sick or whatever. So it's just something for us to think about as we move toward fine-tuning this policy. Thank you.
Okay, Kathleen, it's my understanding this is a first read, and that I know Mike is on, and as chairman of the policy committee, it would be my understanding that we'd have another meeting prior to a vote on this. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. This is a first read.
Okay. Any additional? The next item, informational item is 7.2 policy 202, eligibility of non-resident students.
So moved.
That's going to be an informational item, and we will be on a first read. I'm sorry.
We'll vote on it next meeting.
We'll vote it on at the next meeting.
Thank you.
The following, our last one is policy 7.3, policy 702.1, crowdfunding. Are there any questions on that? Okay, moving forward, board committee reports. Do we have one from policy? I know that they met.
Yeah, we met just this past Tuesday. So the three policies that you see for information tonight are the three policies that we looked at. So so we can we have other other items on for the June meeting, and then generally our committees go dark in July and August, depending upon the work that's being done. So if there's feedback based on Kathleen's question, if you just send it to Mike and I, that'd be helpful.
Carrie, could you remind everybody when the Building and Finance Committee meeting is? So I know that that's a hot topic item right now as we're going through the budget. When is that scheduled for?
Thursday, the 21st.
Thursday, the 21st.
4.
And so I don't miss anything, we didn't have an Adams County Technical Institute meeting. Okay, thanks. Building and ground reports?
Dr. Lay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Dr. Lay.
Good evening. Just a quick update. We are sending out a
family remote learning survey on Wednesday. Back about parent feelings toward our remote learning experience for themselves and for their students. We sent out a staff professional development survey this morning. We're getting data collected. We have actually quite a high response rate already to plan our summer professional development needs. And we're also elementary principals working with the middle school principals to provide some virtual experiences for 5th graders going to the middle school and from 8th graders going to the high school to allow them to at least get some insight into what it will be like for them when they come back to school. And we have virtual field day and virtual field trips occurring in our classrooms as well. Again, just trying to give students experiences that they would have if they were in the brick and mortar settings right now. Quick update.
Thanks, Chris.
Welcome.
A couple of items. Just as a reminder, there'll be an executive session after this meeting, so if board members could stay on for a few minutes with regards to negotiations. And then, as I mentioned previously, we'll be looking at making and fine-tuning a recommended budget. We'll share some updated information on June 1st. We'll both Tom and Belinda be working on updating the revenues at that point based on some of the information that we're getting back from the local tax bureau. So we'll be able to look at that on June 1st. And we've also been looking at some of the lessons that we've learned through the remote learning, obviously, in terms of loaning out equipment and those types of things. Be looking at possibly building into Jeff's budget enough money to allow us to go to one-to-one this coming fall, which will support student learning and allow us to just, basically assign devices, to students and not have to go through a process of pickups and drop-offs and those types of things in the future. So it's probably looking at working that into our numbers for June 1st. So that'll be reflected there. If we see that ordering those devices makes sense closer to the beginning part of June, then I'll propose an action item on June 1st to at least order the devices, even though we'd be looking at paying for it out of the 2021 budget.
Hearing no questions. Anything for the good of the order? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Quick question for Dr. Perrin. Dr. Perrin, I know you mentioned one-to-one. A few years back, when I was the superintendent over South Middleton, we came to Gettysburg as one of the programs that we wanted to model after at the secondary level, at the high school level, 9 through 12, the one-to-one program there. When you say one-to-one at Gettysburg, my perception is we are already there at the high school level. Are you referring to then K-12, all secondary, or the entire school being one-to-one at that point?
Yeah, we'd be looking at moving to one-to-one K-12. So though the distribution or whether kids take them home, those kind of things might vary based on organizational level, the mere fact that a device would be assigned to every student would be new for us, yes.
Wow, that's impressive. Thank you.
President, this is Sylvan. I have a question for Dr. Perrin.
Go ahead.
Could you provide us with an update of the cost savings worksheet that you gave us last month?
I mean, that was a worksheet that Tom had created based on general projections. I don't think that's like a running list that we're keeping, but I could ask Tom if he gets time to look and see if that's still valid.
Yeah, that's the reason for my question. In my own mind, that would help me figure out that percentage that I referred to earlier this evening?
Yeah, just if you just recall though, we won't know the overall savings based on the shutdown really as part of the 1920 budget until December's audit. So I guess what I'm saying is we can't assign that value to help balance the 2021 budget.
I have a question, Mr. President, for Dr.
Go ahead,
Perry.
Carrie.
Follow. There's also expenses that are come along with the shutdown. I know from the budgets that I work with that there were some unexpected expenses. So I know it's hard to capture all of that now. It's too early. I hesitate to ask you even to gather it because it's too early.
The difficult thing too is that you have things that go up and down, and when you're dealing with projections, the real number will come out probably, in December whenever we have the audit. We'll know, along with how the 1920 budget performed, whatever savings would be part of that amount that would go back into fund balance, which, as we discussed previously, next year could be more challenging. So every little bit that's in there is going to be helpful, along with the fact that we're growing the difference between our revenues and expenditures, this budget year.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Mike.
this is Mike, just to add on to what Sylvan was saying. Dr. Perrin, you did provide us a pretty decent list of projected and realized cost savings 2 weeks ago as the shutdown progressed, and I'm going to reiterate with Sylvan. I'd like to see towards the end of the end of the calendar school year, academic school year, I would like to see an updated list, even if it is partially projected, because there's savings to be recognized there, and as well as additional expenses, and I would like to see where we flush out.
The business department will take a look at that.
Any additional questions for Dr. Perrin? Okay, hearing none. Anything for good of the order? Calendar of board events. I am very pleased to report that unless something changes, our June 1st board meeting will be held in the administration building in our boardroom. There'll be social distancing, and the district will make every accommodation to ensure that we're in compliance with Code Yellow that the state puts us in. Every board member will also have the individual choice as to whether or not they choose to attend actively in a board member while we're under the yellow. But that board room will be open for activity, as will everything else that is allowed to by the government and the CDC's regulations. Having said that, one last thing. If everybody from the board could just stay on, because we're going to immediately go into executive session after the other individuals, not board members, come off of Zoom. Having said that, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
We stand adjourned.
Second.